Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining this conversation. My name is Jumebi, and I'm so happy for us to get to talk about Africa's first AI factory. We are going to look into it to see if, it really is worth the hype, if it's important, why should it be important? Is it critical, or is it just a farce, right? And we should all just pack our bags and go home. So yes, let's start. Let's get into it, right? So first off, we have Masiyiwa, who is the CEO of Cassava Technologies, and he is leading efforts to build Africa's first AI factory. So it's going to be a secure data center facility, right, powered by NVIDIA's AI computing technology. And the initiative really aims to provide the African businesses and governments and researchers with access to advanced AI computing capacity. And the goal is that, it would facilitate, AI products and services within the continent. And what we understand from what we are reading is that he is looking to create a hub of AI machinery across the continent that would serve governments and serve businesses and researchers, etc. And he's addressing this real challenge, which is, in the context of the fourth industrial revolution, Africa needs forward thinking, fast execution, strategic investment in data infrastructure, AI machinery, capacity funding, operations personnel, etc. And this needs to happen quickly, and it needs to happen. Well, it needed to happen yesterday, but here we are. But it needs to happen quickly to make sure that in this fourth industrial revolution, we are able to take advantage of it, and we are not taken advantage of. And so I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, why is this important? What does it really matter? And how can I better articulate it? And the way I understand it, easy, and I hope we can probably understand it like this together, is imagine that you, me, and Victor across the street, right? And everybody else in our town. Let's say we lived in a town. It's you, me, and Victor, and we all live in this little town, and there are other people, and we are farmers, quote unquote, right? So we are farmers, and we have different seeds, and we are farmers with a twist. We have seeds to plant, but we don't have farms to plant them in. And let's say you have a mango seed, and I have an apple seed, and Victor has cassava seed. I know cassavas have seeds, but maybe orange. Let's use orange, right? So yeah, he has that, right? And now we want to plant, but we don't have a farm. But let's say, hundreds of miles from here, there's a guy called Jim who has a farm. And Jim is willing to say, hey, I have a farm. You have seeds. I can lease you an acre, a plot of land, etc., for you to come and plant your seeds in my farm. You pay me for, the space you take up, and then you can plant it and then take your harvest and your crops back home to you, of course, which is hundreds of miles from you. And so that's a system we've been taking advantage of for a while now. And in this context, just to better help us understand, you, me, and Victor, and everybody else is Africa, right? So we are Nigeria, we're Kenya, we're Rwanda, Burundi, etc. And the guy, Jim, hundreds of miles from us, is the Americas and Europe and Asia, right? And what we have been doing for the longest time as Africans is that we've been taking the seeds of our thoughts, the seeds of our innovation, our research, our ideas, businesses, etc., and putting that in our trucks, driving it 100 miles down to Jim, and then planting in his farm, paying him, of course. And then after, it grows, we take our trucks back, go take them, put them in a truck, bring it back, and that has been the process. And it doesn't take much to understand that that might not be the best business model. That might not be the cheapest way to go about being a farmer. But that is the situation we find ourselves in as a continent. Now, here comes in Mr. Strive, and here comes in the conversation that we're having today about Africa's AI factory and why it might just be important. Let's say he comes through and, Mr. Strive and Cassava Technologies say, hey, you know what? We're done with this. They are going to create this new farm. They're going to bulldoze these buildings. They're making a new farm right here in our town. And they're going to give us the same exact model that Mr. Jeep does, right? Which is, hey, I'm having this farm. Mr. Strive says to us, Africans, hey, I'm having this farm right now. You can come to me rather than Jim, who lives 100 miles away. You can just walk right across the street to me. Take your seeds in a bag. No need to get in your car. Come plant them in my farm. Put the seeds down in the ground. Plant them. you get the harvest. Of course, you pay me for, the plot you use, the number of acres you use, etc. But this could be our new working relationship, right? So that is what this situation looks like. So that farm that Mr. Strive has now will be what we understand as the the first AI, Africa's first AI factory. And, we would be the businesses and the researchers, the African nations that are going to be leasing this farm, quote unquote, from Mr. Strive. Now, why is this important? I'm going to mention there are a host of different reasons, but I'm going to mention three reasons why this is important. The first one is that it brings the cost of access down. Now, again, keeping up with our metaphor, where if we were going to go to Jim's farm, we would have to first of all have a car, and we'd have to fill it up with fuel, and then we have to drive down and drive back, and it's just a waste of time. Not so much waste, but it's just a cost of time and resources in just doing that entire uh, process just to plant our seeds in this farm that's far away, right? So what does that mean in terms of AI and Africa and etc? It means that for businesses on the continent, right, to engage with cloud computing or to run their models on an AI machine, right? There's a lot of cost entails for Africans because the systems and the infrastructures are not local to us. So there are a lot of things we pay for. Now, it's important for you to know that on average, Africa pays more than every other, continent for AI, I won't say the AI, for cloud computing technology, period. And the reason is because, again, none of those infrastructures are local to us. So you have to really just make up for low latency, just the speed that, first of all, the data has to travel. And then you're thinking about regulations and all the different barriers to entry or just the different levels of challenges associated with just hosting your information on a different continent, right? So the cost of access comes down if you, me, and Vector over there can just walk right across the street. In this case, Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa can just quote unquote walk right across the street to somewhere that's local to their area, reducing all that, speed and all the costs of engaging with AI infrastructure that is not local to the continent, right? If I can put it that simply. The next thing that comes up is the quality goes up, right? So what does it mean the quality goes up? So again, we said that, you have seeds, I have seeds, Victor has seeds, right? And just in agriculture in general, we know that we could both have you can have a mango seed and I can have a mango seed, but it would be of a different type or different variety, right? And what we find is that some of these seeds grow better in different environments. So let's say my orange seed and your apple seed and his mango seed are more designed to yield better in our environment, in our town, such that when we do put them in a truck and we drive down to Jim's farm that is hundreds of miles away in a different terrain, yes, they could possibly grow there, but the terrain is not built for our seed and our seeds are not built for the terrain. So what eventually happens is probably we plant them, but they don't yield as much. And probably we plant them, but they're attacked by pests and probably by pests, local to those areas. And probably we plant them. And just because, again, the environment is not suited to host those seeds, they have different defects, etc. And so what does this really look like from an African infrastructure point of view? It looks like situation where, as Africans, we have these ideas and we have these businesses and these different research ideas, and they are more so built for the continent. They are more so built or designed or thought of in our minds, particular to our language and our culture, our way of doing business, which is different if we're speaking objectively. So when we take these ideas that are meant and built for our environment, are meant to be built for our environment, and we take it over hundreds of miles to America and Europe, and they have designed their farm and their infrastructure, and they've used a knowledge bank that is local to their environment. You would understand why sometimes when we then try to build our own businesses or build our own models on their systems, on their infrastructure, our work might come out a little bit skewed. Our work might come out a little bit biased against our way of being and against our own culture. So that's something that's very important for us to note, right? So now that was the old system. With Mr. Strive having created this farm right here, right across the street, right within our terrain, used to our own land, you know, a terrain that is very much happy to receive our seed. What you will find and what might happen is that we plant that mango seed, and as opposed to where it would you would just maybe 50 mangoes in Mr. Jim's farm, we find that it's going to yield 100 here, right? We find that because, he has built this infrastructure that is more suited and particular to Africa's context. Um, Researchers and businesses on the continent will have an easier time building out their ideas, executing it and scaling it within the continent. And the third thing that, just goes without saying is connection is most likely to happen. So as opposed to the fact that, we're traveling down to Jim's farm at different times to plant our seeds, and it's just hectic enough just getting it there. It doesn't really leave a lot of room for us to connect with people over hundreds of miles away because, again, they don't understand our terrain, they don't understand our ideas of businesses as much as they would understand the people who live in their environment. So you find that those farmers who live in that environment are most likely to collaborate with each other as opposed to them collaborating with us, which is understandable. Now, with what Mr. Strive is doing, if he sets up an AI factory or an AI farm right here, you will find that because you and I speak the same language with Vector and the other folks in the town, we can understand each other and we can communicate and we could decide, hey, let's rather than because we live so close to each other, rather than just leasing a plot just for ourselves, we can do it together, right? And maybe we can build together. Maybe we can genetically modify our seeds so that they grow a different variety together, right? But the fact that we are better able to be in communication within the same region and build within the same region, we leave rooms for our entrepreneurs, our governments, our researchers in continents here on Africa to better engage and work with each other with the goal of building out more technology or building out more tools that will be helpful to the continent, to the people who live on the continent. And because we're doing that together, chances are we're going to build out some models that are, I mean, we could build out individual models, but because now we're working in the same environment, we can build out one model that can work for 5 nations at the same time or work for 5 different business, models here on the African continent at the same time. So that is really that connection part is what Mr. Strive's new AI factory can afford to us. And then, this is just a bonus point, but it's just affordability, right? So imagine again back to that illustration with Jim's farm that's hundreds of miles away. Now, the only people who could possibly go to Jim's farm to plant their seeds are those who can afford it. Those who have a car and those who can pay the fuel and the mileage to go and come back. This would not be the case. What I would say is rather than for people who are not able to do that, right? You find that they might have innovation in seeds and mangoes and oranges in their minds, but they can't go plant it. So it just stays with them and it dies there, right? As opposed to now, Mr. Strive is right across the street. And it's easier for them to connect with him, easier for them to build up a partnership with him. And of course, these are very simplified metaphors, right? That sort of situation would really depend on how Mr. Strive and Cassava Technology sets up their business model. The hope is that they would be able to set it up where they can provide these computing capacity to African nations and governments, researchers, businesses, large ones, of course, but it would be more to our advantage if they can set up a system where even smaller startups, smaller businesses can be able to lease land for sub costs, right? So these are just a few of the reasons why having this AI factory, this Africa AI factory here on the continent, might just be one of the best things to happen to us this year or in this decade and for the next decade, because the goal is that it would be one of many to come. So yes, Mrs. Strive Masiyiwa is building this out with his team at Cassava Technologies. Apparently it's going to be, as of right now, they're looking at a $780 million investment We're going to see what that looks like. We're going to see if it actually happens. The goal is that it does. But if it does, again, keeping that farming metaphor in our minds is going to be a game changer. So thank you so much for listening. Happy to have more conversations about things like this with regards to AI on the African continent and just other technologies as well. If you have any questions, please let me know in the group chat. Sorry, in group chat, quote unquote, the comment section. Send me a message. Always happy to build more, create more content that serves our community. All right. So thank you and have a beautiful day.